the latest coverage of the 2020 presidential, House and Senate elections. Top Democrats urge Biden to keep debating Trump. Lawmakers say the striking contrast between the two candidates will give Biden a boost. Tuesday night's debate was an absolute debacle. Joe Biden could barely get a word in edgewise as President Donald Trump talked over him and hammered his son Hunter. But senior Democrats say Biden should do it all over again in a couple weeks. Biden questions Trump's values after messy debate. "I think he basically looks down on us. He judges us," the former vice president said at the start of a day-long train tour. Former Vice President Joe Biden on Wednesday sought to pivot from the chaos of the previous night's debate by largely ignoring it and trying to shift the focus back to his core campaign message. "Last night's debate and this election is supposed to be about you," Biden told an Ohio voter whose auto worker husband had lost his job and was forced to accept a transfer 8 hours away. Appeals court lets extended ballot receipt deadline take effect in Wisconsin. The panel found that Republican groups did not have standing to challenge the extended deadline. An appeals court has handed Democrats a temporary victory, turning down a bid by Republicans to block a federal judge's order that mail-in ballots postmarked by Election Day be counted even if received up to 6 days after the election. Tuesday's ruling from the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals did not delve into the legal arguments for or against the extension and some other changes ordered by the district court, but held that the parties seeking to block the order on an emergency basis, the Wisconsin legislature, the Wisconsin GOP and the Republican National Committee, lacked the legal standing to challenge the move. "I heard it differently," Trump allies play defense on hate group remarks. Far-right groups such as the Proud Boys quickly seized on the comments by the president, which they took as a call to action. Surrogates for Donald Trump worked Wednesday to defuse the fallout from the previous night's fractious debate, where the president failed to denounce white supremacists. Trump, given a direct opportunity by moderator Chris Wallace to condemn the nation's biggest domestic terrorist groups, instead told them to stand back and stand by. The president's refusal to rebuke hate groups dragged his history of racist remarks back into the national spotlight, putting Trump's allies on defense a morning after the debate. What GOP delegates are worried about this election? 11 of Trump's most committed supporters discuss mail-in voting, post-election unrest, and what happens if Trump loses. With less than 40 days until Americans vote, tensions around the election are running high, from fears of violence to worries about the basic integrity of Election Day. Will all voters really get a fair shot? How are the incendiary politics of race, the pandemic and the Supreme Court raising the stakes? And, perhaps top of mind for many people this week, if Donald Trump unilaterally declares a loss unfair, as he's threatening to do, will rank-and-file Republicans accept the result? Or line up behind him to fight it? Many Republican leaders have distanced themselves from Trump's comments and promised a peaceful transition of power. But how about the party's base? To get a window into those questions, Politico magazine gathered a highly subjective but important focus group. 11 delegates to the Republican National Convention, in states from Pennsylvania to Hawaii, who we'd previously sounded out for their views on the first virtual convention. What are they worried about? What's a fair election in their view? What worries them about a Joe Biden win, and are they prepared to accept that result? SCOTUS battle crashes into decisive Senate race in Iowa. Both candidates are wary that the politics could backfire on them in a neck-and-neck contest. Grimes, Iowa Republican Senator Joni Ernst joined the GOP blockade of Merrick Garland in 2016, and 2 years later she reiterated that the Senate shouldn't take up a Supreme Court nominee in a presidential election year. But with Senate Republicans now forging ahead with confirmation proceedings for Amy Coney Barrett, the first-term senator is right there with them. Undecided voters call Trump unhinged and un-American but are unswayed by debate. You just saw 90 minutes. How can you still be undecided? Veteran GOP pollster Frank Luntz told a virtual focus group. After watching the first presidential debate Tuesday night, undecided voters from battleground states across the country still had plenty they wanted to know about coronavirus, racial injustice and what each candidate would do to unite the country. Out of 15 undecided voters in a virtual focus group conducted by veteran Republican pollster Frank Luntz, 4 said they were supporting Democratic nominee Joe Biden after watching the debate, and 2 backed President Donald Trump. The rest remained on the fence. There were 9 men and 6 women, and they hailed from Arizona, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Florida, Ohio, North Carolina, Wisconsin and Nevada. You just saw 90 minutes. How can you still be undecided? An incredulous Lentz asked. Please explain that to me? Despite their indecisiveness, most described Trump in a negative light, including one of the participants who was leaning toward voting for the president. The voters characterized Trump as unhinged, arrogant, forceful, a bully, chaotic, and un-American. When asked to describe Biden, they offered, better than expected, politician, compassion, coherent, and a nice guy lacking vision. Across a 1-hour session in which Lentz brought in a handful of reporters from national news outlets, including Politico, to pose questions to the group, the following is what stood out. What pushed some over the edge? The roughly 4 voters who ended the night in Biden's corner were stunned by Trump's performance. Ruthie, a voter from Pennsylvania, described it as trying to win an argument with a crackhead. Joe from Arizona said he entered the night leaning Biden and after the debate decided to vote for the former vice president. Trump didn't defend his record on the unrest in American cities and protests, he said. He inflames a lot of anger in this country, said Joe. And on the pandemic, he said, Trump couldn't defend his record on slow walking the government's response. Luke from Wisconsin was one of the 2 participants to say he's now voting for Trump. Trump is annoying, he's unpresidential, Luke said, but on the economy and law and order he trusts Trump. Luke said he doesn't want to be afraid for his community, pointing to riots in Kenosha, Wis. After the police shooting of Jacob Blake, which left Blake paralyzed. Some remained undecided. The majority of the focus group remained undecided after the lengthy, chaotic debate. Many put a greater onus on Biden to deliver strong answers than Trump, excusing the president's behavior as typical or just Trump being Trump. Travis of Arizona said the few times Biden tried to land a jab on Trump he whiffed.